You all look very relaxed.
Oh, they are. Generally, these beanbags are a gift and a curse. But yeah, there was someone yesterday just pretty much watching the ceiling most of the time, but eyes downwards. Welcome, Kevin. How are you?
I'm very well. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you. You enjoying Gent?
Loving it. It's great. Yeah, my first visit to Gent, not to Belgium, but first visit here, and it's really nice.
It's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lovely town.
Yeah, generally we said it yesterday. Favourite city in Belgium so far, so well done. Are they treating you well out there?
They're treating me very well. They're very nice. Lots of people coming up, saying hello, getting autographs, telling me little stories. It's great.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you're a good bunch. You're a good bunch. Yeah, thanks for coming down. We'll generally just get into your career in a second. I've already seen about more pirates in a room than I've seen in my life.
I know there's a lot of pirates here today. Yeah. There's not that many in here. I don't know, where are the pirates? Why haven't they come to see me?
We just had a big group.
Ah, there they are.
Yeah, there they are. Yeah, over there. There's some there. We had a few Jacks walk through a minute ago. There they are wandering over there. Yeah.
I think I've seen 3 Jack Sparrows here.
Yeah. I imagine it's quite normal to you to see just a room full of pirates now.
Yeah, I see a lot of Jack Sparrows, and they range in accuracy from looking like they've just thrown something together to people who have these costumes that are exactly like Johnny Depp's. It's extraordinary.
Oh, and as if by magic.
There they are.
What I love about Jack Sparrow cosplayers, they don't just do the costume, they get the swagger in as well.
They do the whole thing, yeah. Of course it is.
Did you, when you started acting, did you know that would become a part of your career, just pirates walking up to you?
No, I never for a moment suspected that. Although, funny enough, the first role I played was Jim Hawkins in Treasure Island.
Oh, nice.
So, at 16, so in a way I sort of came full circle, back round to the pirates again.
Did you start acting for stage or screen or?
I started on the stage, yeah.
Yeah, because you've done quite a lot of Shakespeare, haven't you?
I've done a bit of Shakespeare, not too much. I've done 2 Shakespeare plays, and quite recently in life. I never did it much when I was young. I did a lot of new plays and a lot of television, and then latterly more films since the Pirates movies.
Yeah, I mean your TV CV is incredible.
It's pretty long.
Yes. But it's so many good things.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very lucky to be doing it for so long. But remember, when I started, it was in black and white and it was silent. But technology has changed somewhat over the years.
Yeah, it was an adjustment to do the words after a while.
Yeah, exactly.
You're a natural. You do a lot of comedy as well, I've noticed.
Yes, I do like doing comedy. And I didn't do it for many years. And then, sort of in the 80s, I got to know a few comedians who got me in their shows. And I did more and more comedy.
Yeah, but it was something, because I obviously looked through everything you've ever done today. But like, you started things like Rapsy Nesbitt early on and stuff like that, but then...
Rapsy Nesbitt, I mean, I worked with Fry and Laurie, Rick Mail and Adrian Edmonds.
Yeah, all the comic strips.
Joe Brand, Stephen Fry, Hugh Laurie. Did I say them?
Yeah.
Yes. So all of the sort of comedians of my generation, a little younger, I've worked with.
Yeah. But even now, you're in Fleabag, even like.
I have a very fleeting appearance.
But what a thing to be in.
I know, it's great. It's really good. Actually, I was working with Phoebe Waller-Bridge when she created that character.
Did you see the stage version?
Yes.
It's incredible.
Well, actually, me and 2 of the people we were working with, we sort of financed her to get the show on in Edinburgh.
Oh, wow.
And therefore she invited us to come and see it. And then when she did the TV series, she said, I hope this is insulting, but I have one scene for you with 1 line. Would you come and do it? And when I found out what it was, I said, yes, of course.
Obviously.
That's very funny, very funny.
But yeah, I mean, that's the thing, because if you look at you as an actor, obviously you've done things like Shakespeare, but you are very good at comic performances. Like Gibbs himself has got that time.
Gibbs is quite a comic character.
Very straight, but
yeah, but I think the best comedy is quite straight.
Yeah.
You know, I think if you try to play things for laughs, I don't think it's very funny. I think when you have somebody being utterly sincere in their comedy, that's when it's funniest. I'm distracted here because I love this TV show.
Oh, you're just watching Star Trek, yeah.
Just shh. I'm trying to watch the television. Stop it.
Yeah, sorry, the Q&A's over. We're just going to have a screening of some of the old Star Treks. Oh, so you're a Star Trek fan?
Yeah, a big Star Trek fan.
Which is... Yeah, these guys are going to get us. Who's your captain?
Well, of course, I remember, turning on the television when I was 10 years old, and this show coming on and going, well, this is the best show ever. At that point, I was a Batman fan. 1966, a great year. England won the World Cup. There was Batman and there was Star Trek. You don't better a year like that.
And the best version of Batman, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
It's so funny.
Oh, it's just hysterical. So, I mean, for me, it's Captain Kirk.
Oh, nice.
All the way down the line. I'm also a big Star Wars fan. In fact, I got into trouble at my last convention because there's some Star Wars people over there. Because somebody said you must be a big Harry Potter fan, and I went, like that.
Yeah.
I got booed.
That was it, yeah.
I got booed. Because for me, I'm really into the hardcore space opera science fiction.
Nice.
And not so much of the fantasy stuff.
Yeah, I flip, but I lean towards sci-fi as well. I love Flash Gordon. I think it's one of the most perfect films ever made. Like the
Which one?
The 80s Flash Gordon.
Oh yeah.
It's just, if I could go back and be in anything, I think it'd be that.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Do you like that idea of like world building and things like that then? Are you one of those people that when you're into something, you're into it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I read a lot of science fiction. And in fact, this year, to bring the two things together, comedy and science fiction, my first novel is coming out.
Oh, amazing.
And it's a comic science fiction novel.
Oh, when can we expect that?
I think it'll be out in September, and it's called Sons of Soul.
Oh, nice.
So the next time you see me, perhaps you'll come and buy my book from me.
Oh, you've married up my two favourite things, so I'll be on
Great.
So how did you find that, going from acting to writing? Was it a very different process, or?
Well, it was, I'd wanted to write a comedy sci-fi book for a long time, and so I decided I would read a lot of sci-fi, but unfortunately, if you go to a bookshop and pick out any sci-fi novel and read it, 90% chance that it'll be utter shit.
Yeah.
So, but fortunately, about 10 years ago, Gollancz, the publishing house, produced the
Masterworks, yeah.
The Masterworks, the 100 best science fiction books of the 20th century. So I read all of those and then thought, I'm ready to write this book.
Did you read all of them?
Yeah.
Wow, I've been working through a lot, but I've not even anywhere.
Well, to be fair, sometimes I read one and I'll go, no, that's not for me, I won't read that one.
Go.
So I would say I've read about 65 of them.
Oh wow.
And I think there are 100.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because the peak of sci-fi writing is sort of, I'd say there's that coming just past the 50s when they're still doing that sort of pulp writing.
The golden age.
They're quite quick on. You can get through a lot of them in a day.
Yeah, absolutely. You can read a book a day. It's really easy. But I mean, I love people like his name's gone for Harry Harrison, is it?
Yeah.
The Stainless Steel Rat and all those. I love those books. I was big on Arthur C. Clarke. The English writers, Brian Aldiss, Isaac Asimov, obviously, the real greats, Ursula Le Guin, I'm a big fan of.
I just finished Earthsea.
Ah, right.
Which I know that's more fantasy than sci-fi, but
it is a bit, but it's great. It's great.
I nearly cried when I left that world.
Yeah,
I didn't want it to end, and I knew there wasn't going to be any more.
No, I know it's a shame, isn't it? Because I think she died, didn't she?
She did, yeah. I think about 10 years ago.
About 10 years ago, yeah. Also, I think, having said that about sci-fi being on the whole shit, actually, I think one of the best books ever written is a sci-fi book, and it's Flowers for Angelon by
read it last year.
By Daniel Keyes. I've read that book 3 times. It's a beautiful book.
Yeah, absolutely.
And heartbreaking.
What was the film of it that was?
Charlie, I think.
Charlie, yeah. Was it Oscar nominated? I think it was.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
Cliff Robertson, I think, played the title.
Because I that's one of those books that people have said, just read, and I finally got round to it.
I recommend it to everybody, yeah.
Yeah, there'll be a few sci-fi fans in here.
Yeah.
If you've not read it.
You might do.
Yeah. Yeah, there'll be one or two.
You can't throw a lightsaber in here without hitting a sci-fi fan.
Yeah, it's great, but that's the beautiful thing is...
Oh, I want to go on the broom!
I mean, we will take you down with the microphones if you want to go on the broom. If you want to take this audience...
Hold on, this is getting interesting over here, hold on.
Where are you at? For anyone that can't see,
they're in terrible trouble.
We're on Discovery at the moment. Have you watched Discovery?
Yeah, I really like it, yeah.
Have you finished it?
I haven't. Funny enough, I was with Jason Isaacs a few weeks ago, and it's terrible when you know people, because I said, I'm really enjoying you in Discovery, and he went, yeah, it's terrible they killed me off. I said, Jason, I haven't got to that bit yet. Spoiler alert.
But the good thing about sci-fi is you're never dead.
No, that's true, you can always come back to life.
Yeah, there's always a time loop or something to close.
It's sort of like that in Pirates as well. I mean, I can't count how many times Jeffrey Rush has died.
Oh yeah, I mean, no one stays dead in Pirates, do they?
Exactly.
Did you, because you say you're more of a sci-fi fan, when you got the call for Pirates, because obviously Pirates of the Caribbean, before the films, you think Disney ride.
Right.
So when you got that call that they were doing a movie, how did we a bit like,
Well, I'll tell you what happened. Funny thing was, I was, my daughter had an operation on her head, rather a serious operation, and she couldn't fly. And I wanted to take her somewhere after the operation. And Disneyland Paris had opened, and I took her there. And when I started working on the film, I was looking around at some of the characters and some of the things, and I said, this all seems vaguely familiar. And she said, Dad, don't you remember 3 years ago, we went to Disneyland and we rode on Pirates of the Caribbean? I went, I knew I'd seen this somewhere before, but I'd completely forgotten about it.
Oh really?
So it did seem terribly familiar, yeah.
It's so interesting, because like, I remember watching the first Pirates, and there's that beautiful thing where you go into it thinking it's going to be a straight action adventure.
Right.
Going back to comedy, there's that beautiful moment where it's the sword, I think, is the first lap, when Orlando Bloom does the sword. And I remember the cinema just lighting up with laughter. And the tone of that film is just that beautiful. It's got the action, it's got the adventure.
Perfect, really, isn't it? But and because it came as a terrible surprise that it was so successful, because there hadn't really been a successful pirate film since the 50s, maybe. Tyrone Power or Errol Flynn. There had been a couple of attempts. There was Roman Polanski's Pirates, which flopped. Cutthroat Island, which flopped.
I quite like Cutthroat Island.
No, I think they're both quite good films. But it's like the audience weren't ready for it. But there was something about just the characters. And somebody said to me, what happens usually in a pirate film is you've got the goodies and the baddies. But very similar to Star Wars, the main character isn't a goodie or a baddie. He's just a really selfish bastard, you know. In fact, somebody else said to me at a convention recently, he said, it's a great similarity between Star Wars and Pirates of the Caribbean. He said, because there's the two beautiful young people, Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia, and we've got Elizabeth Swann and Bill Turner. He said there's the baddie, there's Barbossa, and there's Darth Vader. He said there's the two robots, C-3PO and R2-D2, and you've got Pintel and Rigetti, and in the middle you've got Han Solo, who is, of course, Jack Sparrow. Yeah. And I said, that makes me... And so sorry to see the passing of the great Peter Mayhew this last week, who of course is the original and the best Chewbacca.
Yeah, we had a thing yesterday with Brian Muir, and everyone was very lovely about him. So again, that's the other thing with you are now in one of those franchises that has become a legacy franchise, and you get that. It's one of the reasons you're here now is because people feel that attachment to the people they see on screen, and it's a beautiful thing, and we do feel it when something like that happens. It's horrible.
It's funny. What's a bit depressing for me is that my core people are all in their 30s now. You know, they're not like kids anymore. Because I suppose the people who grew up with the first pirate film when they were like 10 or 12, they're approaching 30 now.
Yeah.
So I can't wait for them. my fans to get older.
It's alright, they'll do what they do with Harry Potter, they'll have kids and they give it to
right, and pass it on,
kids,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
you just get every age going through.
Well, exactly what I did with my kids with Star Wars,
yeah.
you know. I was so, and of course, I don't know whether you remember, but George Lucas was very funny about releasing, I don't know whether he ever released it on video, but he was quite reticent to even release them on DVD, and when they came out later than any of the other films that you would like to collect. So it wasn't really until I got a widescreen TV and DVDs that I was able to watch Star Wars to my heart's content.
I remember exactly that, because they'd always do the box sets, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
And then you'd suddenly get a flood of people who love Star Wars. Because the first time I saw Star Wars would have been my brother taped it off the TV on one Christmas.
Oh, right.
So there's a whole chunk of Star Wars where we used to do the thing, if anyone had VHSs, where you try and pause it to cut out the adverts. And then, I think it was Return of the Jedi, there was a whole bit of a scene that we had missing. And for years I'd not seen it.
Oh, really?
I watched it through and went, what's this bit?
Right. Yeah, I used to do that. But you absolutely pay attention. Don't go and get a cup of tea or anything, and then back on again.
Yeah. Oh, I used to love it. But yeah, it's crazy because now obviously everyone can find anything anywhere.
Yeah.
And which is great in itself, because whereas I think before this generation we were given our culture. Because it was like, what's in the cinema, what's on TV, what's on this.
Yeah, very much so.
And then once it passed, it had gone. But then the rise of DVD and certainly the internet suddenly meant that you could find all these old things that you sometimes forgotten about, and suddenly they have like a second life or a second...
And you know, I think the industry was very slow to catch on, because I remember when VHSs first came out, if you bought a film, they sort of treated it like a print of a film.
Yeah.
And back in 1980, if you wanted to buy a film, it cost £70.
What?
To buy a DVD, because they really were selling them to places to rent.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I mean the idea now that you can buy, you can buy anything you like for probably, a couple of euros.
Yeah.
Is unbelievable. But yeah, it was the first video I bought was £72.
Really? What was it?
I can't for the life of me remember, but I suspect it was a science fiction film.
Oh, really? What is your favourite science fiction film?
Do I?
Do you have a favourite science
fiction? Oh yeah, definitely 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh, classic.
Yeah.
Classic.
And I've just read a fantastic book called 2001: Kubrick, Clark and the Making of a Masterpiece. Oh. And it's a fact, you've got to read it if you're a fan of sci-fi. It's a really detailed book about how that was made from the first idea to the time they released it.
I mean, I years ago got obsessed with Kubrick, and I read a lot of the stuff, and it's amazing. Some of his films just shouldn't exist at the time or with the person.
Well, if you look at 2001, nobody, even in the digital age, has shot space.
Yeah.
The way he shot it.
Yeah.
And it's hard for probably young people to imagine, but when that came out in '68 and you went to the cinema, you were open-mouthed. It was like, he's gone to space.
Yeah.
And shot it. And by the way, this is the answer to the people who say that the moon landings were faked.
Yeah.
And they were shot by Stanley Kubrick. Well, it's absolutely true. But he was such a perfectionist, he went to the moon to shoot it.
Well, you say that. Did you know Stanley Kubrick was terrified of travelling?
Yeah, he couldn't fly.
Yeah, he later on in his films, there's a really famous story where when he wanted to film Full Metal Jacket, they were like, you can't film this in England, because he lived in England at the time.
In the docklands.
Yeah, and one of the runners went down, found this little bit of like dirt land, took a photo and went, what about this? And he got promoted to an AD, and it was
Is that right? I didn't know that story.
It's great, but so he would have shot it in space, but he would have sent someone over.
Yeah, he'd have done it remotely from his living room.
Yeah, whilst he was reading about Napoleon.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great, like, again, because you obviously come to conventions and stuff, do you find, like, it's nice that, because this is relatively new, I'd say. Like the past 10 years, Comic-Con's had a boom where people who love things like sci-fi or fantasy and all these franchises can come together and sort of be amongst each other. Because when I was a kid, I'm sure when a lot of these people are children as well, you're kind of an outsider when you love this sort of thing.
Yeah. And the geeks are taking over.
Oh yeah.
And the world's a better place for it, let me tell you.
Yeah, it's great. But you used to have to. Were you? If you're like, would you say you're a geek? Were you a film geek when you were?
Oh, very much so. Yeah, I was a geek. Of course, it's like you say. It was much harder to get access to that sort of stuff. You know, particularly as things like sci-fi films, they'd be on the television. They were very B movies.
Yeah.
They tended to be on late, and there were no video recorders. So I'd have to beg my dad to let me stay up to see Destination Moon by George Powell. Forbidden Planet was a favourite.
Leslie Nielsen's acting is incredible in Forbidden Planet.
Who's?
Leslie Nielsen, isn't
Oh
he?
yeah. Leslie Nielsen, yeah. He was great in that. It was when he was a straight actor.
Yeah.
When they became a comedy actor.
And then they just gave him comedy lines, but he kept the delivery.
Right. What I was able to do is there was a cinema very close to where I lived, as there were in those days. Every area had a big cinema with a big screen, and my dad was an avid cinema goer. So, for instance, when It's a Mad World came out, I loved that film so much. My dad took me every night that it was on, so I went and saw it 7 days in 1 week.
Oh wow!
7 times. And when 2001 came out, I remember, God, I wish I'd had a camera in those days and taken a picture of the big poster outside. He took me to see that 3 times.
Oh wow!
And I think The Godfather 4 times.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
classics, all of them. Is that what sparked your interest in acting then? Was it?
It wasn't so much because I didn't for a moment believe that a young lad from Birmingham, which is where I'm from, could be in the movies. But I knew I could probably be in the theatre somewhat. And when I was a kid, people's employers used to take their kids for a Christmas visit to a pantomime. And I got enthralled with the pantomime. I think more enthralled with the girls dancing in the background. And in those days you used to have little binoculars, you put 6pence in, and you could look at and I was never looking at the comedians, I was looking at the dancing girls at the back. So I think that's what I fell in love with initially. But it was only later I realised, oh, I could be on the television, right? I could be in a movie.
Did you have that? I love when people ask people this, but did you ever have that moment where it just dawned on you, where you looked around and went, oh wow, I'm doing this is my life, or you always having that moment?
Well, I started very young, so I was 16 when I got my first professional job, so it's always been with me, really. I will never forget the first moment I walked onto a professional stage. That was pretty good, but I'd done lots of plays at schools, and I loved it, and I was really used to it. I look back and I think, I can remember I was never nervous when I was young. It's only as you get older, you start to realise all the things that could go wrong, and you start to get really panicky.
There's that interesting thing with any sort of performance, though. When you start, you want to prove yourself, but you have nothing to lose. But once you have done a good performance, every performance after that has to be at least that good or better.
That's right.
You're always climbing that ladder.
And I know that comedians, stand-up comedians, tell me that becomes a bit of a barrier later on that you have to break through several times.
And you know what it is as well. You can do the same play, anything on stage, and the reaction you can never predict.
No.
It's a fascinating thing. That idea that you get addicted to applause is very much true.
Yeah. I sometimes am doing plays that have been going really well, and then suddenly there's no response, and you want to say, what is wrong with you? Well, everyone else loves this, but of course it's very rarely the audience's fault. It's usually something you're doing.
You find though you can never predict. You can get used to the beats of a play, and then you have that one play or show where the offbeat is where everyone laughs. Or the rhythm goes out.
But of course that's what makes it so interesting.
Yeah. You're back in Star Trek? What we got?
No, I think they're moving on to another one now. They were on Enterprise, they were Discovery, Enterprise. Why aren't they showing the original one?
We should.
Outrage.
If we get a break in the stage, we should just let you do a commentary over one of the episodes.
Yes.
I would watch that a lot. So I'll loop back because I know a lot of people want to hear about pirates, and we will open the floor for questions soon. Don't worry. But now, obviously, what was 2003 the first Pirates?
The release, we made it in 2002, yeah.
Yeah, and now it's how many films?
5.
Yeah, I was doing the maths in my head. How does it feel knowing that became a franchise and it is this thing now that it, sort of the fans own a lot of?
Well, the remarkable thing was, I didn't think anybody would go and see it, but it became such a big hit so instantly.
Yeah.
It's like it always has been a big hit. But I didn't for a moment think I'd be sitting here 17 years later with 5 films under my belt. I didn't imagine that. I don't think any of us imagined that. The only person who really had confidence in it from the beginning were 2 people actually, was Johnny and Gore Verbinski, the director of the first 3. They somehow knew in their bones that it had all of the right elements. Yeah. And indeed, between the 2 of them, I think they set up the whole feel of the thing that has made it so successful.
I think that was the thing that made it work, was the tone of it was so different to, like you say, pirate things hadn't been done, but that tone was so modern for its era.
Yeah. Absolutely, and there's no doubt about it. It's why these rumours that there might be another pirate film without Jack Sparrow, I think, are crazy. Because without that legend that he created instantly, the films would be good, but only good. It's the Jack Sparrow characters. I'm sure these guys will agree. Oh, they're buggered off. They got bored with me. Without that character, it's that character that makes it great. Yeah, I think.
I mean that's the sort of the glue of the film, I think.
Yeah, completely.
Without the other characters of the plot, it's like any film. You can have one standout thing, but you don't. I think it's interesting as well. Like, what was it like? Because obviously, is it Keith Richards, isn't he? He based it on.
Yeah,
based it on. It's great. Did you guys know that was going to happen when you walked on set? Like, what was that like to see for the first time? Because now everyone knows what to expect.
Oh, do you mean Keith Richards?
No, I mean, he's impressed the performance, yeah.
Well, I must say, the first time I worked with Johnny, I sort of went like, that's weird. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. But it was sort of brilliant. The people who didn't like it, of course, were the Disney executives.
Oh, really?
Well, they thought that it wasn't. They had not for a moment imagined that he would be slightly camp and drunk.
Yeah.
They didn't feel it fell into the Disney world, you know. And they were very worried and kept coming down to the set, and Disney told them to have sex and travel quite strongly. Of course, when the film came out, it was such a hit. They all knew that he was going to be great, you know. Yeah. Suddenly, their stories.
Takes credit for it.
Yeah, we always knew he was going to be wonderful. But you know, they were very, very shocked. Oh look, it's the original Star Trek. It's here finally.
The motion picture. For anyone who can't see the screen.
God, I remember when that came out. I was so thrilled.
That still, out of all the Star Trek films, is still the most artistic in visuals.
Yeah. Like, well, they're going to show the whole thing. Shh! Could somebody get me some popcorn and some Coca-Cola? I'm going to watch this from beginning to end.
Welcome to Kevin McNally watches Star Trek. It'll last about 16 days as we work through the entire catalogue. No one leaves. I think we'd do that. I think we would do that. I am going to check time, because what I've been doing recently is going on too long and not letting people talk to you. So I am going to open the floor to questions. Everyone's always a bit shy at first, but if you've got a question, put your hand up. We've got a microphone that will come to you. Don't be shy, guys. Yeah, they're always our favourite. You always open this up. What's happening here?
Calling me Coca-Cola.
Oh, nice.
This isn't popcorn, these are knickknacks.
We're working with what we've got.
and it needs to be Coke Zero. So needy.
What a diva. What a diva. Get me my Coke Zero. Yes, first question down the front, please.
Hi, thank you for coming to Belgium.
You're welcome.
I was wondering what's it like to act in those costumes, because they do look quite elaborate, and those sets, they look amazing.
Well, yes, the costume, my costume actually on the end of the last film got up and walked off itself. It was so stinky. I wear rags in the film, basically. As far as the sets go, for the first 3 films it was fantastic, because when we wanted to split a ship in half, we split a ship in half.
Oh wow.
Latterly, there's so much more, and you find a lot of actors complaining about this. Making those big pictures is not as much fun as it used to be.
Oh really?
Because of so much blue screen.
Yeah.
I remember at the end of the 5th film, we had a sort of top of the boat. It was completely blue screen, and they showed us a painting of what the scene would look like. So it was all supposed to be shock and awe, and there's nothing there to see. So you have to imagine everything now. But it wasn't like that for the first 3. It was really, really extraordinary to turn up with these amazing sets. And so, it is a disappointment. A lot of the people who do the Star Trek and Star Wars films say the same thing.
Yeah, you're just looking at, yeah. It's strange, isn't it? We had Brian Muir here yesterday, obviously, who designs a lot of sets and stuff.
Right.
And he was saying the same, but there is that thing, especially with something where you want to feel like that's real, and you can tell the difference, you can sort of smell it out.
Oh, absolutely. And I think one of the problems that people had with the middle set of Star Wars films, the 3 prequels, was that at times they felt like animated films.
Yeah.
They didn't feel like live action films at all.
And it's just people walking.
Yeah, and you can tell. I think. I tell you, one of the most disgusting things I ever saw was going to see Pierce Brosnan's last Bond film, and there's a thing where he parachutes out of a plane, then lands and surfs up the beach, and you always look for a stuntman to risk his life to do this, and it was bloody CGI.
Yeah.
And there was a groan from the audience, like, we don't come to Bond films to see CGI.
Yeah.
We come to see fantastic stunts.
Yeah.
So that seemed to me the beginning of a bit of a rot in films.
Yeah, it's nice now though, they sort of recognise that, and even though there's still a lot of CGI, they're trying to find that balance, I think, where the craft is going back into a lot. You still see a lot of CGI, and it'll never be the same, but
CGI is at its best when it smartens up a picture. But I think the big elements should be real.
Yeah.
And people like Quentin Tarantino are going back to shooting on 35mm film now.
Oh yeah.
And really going back to that original feel, because that's a very different energy.
Yeah. I talk technicals all day, but if you watch a lot of film, you can see why the old stuff is,
Oh yeah.
Before
we get back to 2001, that was it's Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, one of my favourites. Yeah.
The best one.
But just getting back to 2001, reading this book and finding out how they did those incredible effects, it just releases people's imagination.
Yeah.
Whereas nowadays people go, oh, we're going to have a planet blowing up, and we'll do it in post.
Yeah.
John Landis once told me a great story, the guy who directed American Werewolf in London. There's a sequence where the guy's having a dream, and a woman, when he's in hospital after he's been bitten,
I know very well.
and he opens the curtain and there's a full moon outside. And the props department were arguing about, should they make a plastic moon? Should they, should they do some sort of effect? And while they were doing it, John Landis just got a bit of tissue paper, a bit of black card, put a circle in it, and put a light behind it. And he said, there's your moon. And it's a fantastic thing, and it's literally a piece of cardboard and a piece of tissue paper.
Do you know what's beautiful about that? American Werewolf in London is one of the films for practical effects as well.
Amazing.
The werewolf
transformation is just
unbelievable.
Yeah.
There's one of the beautiful things about YouTube and the internet is a lot of the old effects that before Blu-rays they didn't think about making special features.
Right.
They're digging out loads of things to show you how they did stuff. And
Right,
you can
right.
find loads of things. There's a beautiful one from Terminator 2 where they show how they explode the city, and it's a massive model of a city.
Right.
And what they do is they put a camera above it, they light fire on the bottom, and the fire just rips through it. So when you flip the screen, it looks like it's going forward, but it's just rising up.
yeah.
And like,
What, do you mean the Dream nuclear
yeah,
explosion?
when she's doing that, and
Yeah.
the wave
At
comes
the-
through
at
the
the
city,
chain fence.
and it's one of the most amazing practical effects you've ever seen. And then, like you say, they clean it up afterwards.
Well, look at the opening of Blade Runner.
Yeah.
I mean, that beautiful model. It's incredible.
Do you know? Isn't that's based on Middlesbrough, I think?
On Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah. If anyone doesn't know the UK, this is
Well, it does look pretty shit. That's for sure.
Yeah. But Ridley Scott grew up near there, and the skyline. He was really sort of stuck with him as he grew. And if you ever drive up there, you see all that still the industrial sort of grit of it, and that became
Oh, that's amazing. That's good to know.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Any more questions? Please raise your hand, and we will.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, we're straight down the front.
Hello and welcome to Belgium.
Thank you.
It's not so much a question as an invitation.
Okay.
As you are so much of a Star Trek fan, we do have the original series captain's chair if you want to have a seat in it.
Oh, yes, please.
Well, it's just behind the pillar.
As soon as I'm finished, I shall go down there.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
We'll move your desk. We'll get your desk there.
Thank you.
Oh.
There you go.
Yeah, there. Is anyone else got a chair they want to offer up to Kevin? Questions? Any pirates got a question?
Over here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Look at that. Rifle phaser, nice.
Star Trek fan and Pirates fan. Regarding Pirates, did you get to film on any kind of exotic tropical locations, and what was that experience like for you?
Well, it was great. The first three we filmed in the Caribbean, on many islands, Vincent, the Exumas, the Bahamas, but we got bored with that. So the fourth one we went to Hawaii and filmed it there, and the last film we shot in Australia. A funny story actually. They shot there because of financial reasons. There was a tax break. But of course we got there, and the flora and the fauna in Australia is nothing like the Caribbean. So every morning, and this certainly wiped out the tax break, every morning a tanker had to come from Bali, full of trees and bushes and stuff, and we would put them along the beach around the set. So that film for me, I can just think of rotting vegetation the whole time I watched that film.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The one time you thought, oh, just CGI them.
Yeah, just CGI me. No, they're actually bringing them over from Bali.
Okay,
Did you know Zoe Saldana was in the first pirate film?
Oh, no.
It was her third film, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
There you go. This is great. It's a Q&A with IMDb interruptions. I love it.
Yes.
Trivia.
But IMDb Pro is a terrible thing. It takes me about 14 hours to watch a film nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
Because I go in and I go, who was that?
What have they been in? Yeah.
Pause. Look on IMDb. Oh, he died last year. What a shame. Yeah.
I don't know, just because I'll never get to tell you this again. Amazon Prime have integrated it so you can pause it now and it tells you who's in the scene.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's great.
What's that called?
It's just on Amazon Prime because they own IMDb. You can pause it and and now I spend a film just pausing it going, who's that? Who's that? Yeah.
Brilliant. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, that is an incredible thing that's changed the way people watch films.
Right,
Because
right.
I do exactly that, and I'm sure most people here who love films are the same.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Where do I know that film? Oh, and then...
Where do I know that film? It's particularly great when you're watching very old films.
Yeah. I find it, the weird thing that I do now is I look at how old someone was when they shot a certain film.
Right.
And I don't know why I do that, but I'm like,
I
just
know,
to see what
it's just
stage of
working
their
out,
life,
yeah.
it is. There you go.
Yeah, I found out I was 46 when I made the first pirate film. I was shocked.
Imagine that's how you checked your birthday.
Yeah. When was I born? I don't look at IMDb. Oh, the 27th.
Yeah. Any more questions for Kevin? Yeah, we got someone over here.
Hi, I was just wondering how much sword training did you need to do the pirates?
Well, that's a funny story to that. When we got out there for the first pirate, we had a boot camp in which we had to learn to sword fight and to fire cannon. And we went out there, and I said to the woman organising it, I said, look, I'm not going to do this because during the whole film, whenever there's a fight, I'm drunk down in the hold. I'm drinking rum. I'm a lover, not a fighter. So about 4 months passed by, and we got to the big fight at the end of the first thing between Barbossa's crew and Will Turner and Elizabeth and me. And the director was looking really worried, and I said, what's the problem? He said, well, I got over there, I got a crew of 80 people who you can't kill. And you, Orlando, and Kira. And I said, oh yeah, that is a bit of a problem, isn't it? I said, what are you going to do? He said, Gibbs is going to have to kick ass. So I quickly was taught this fight, wishing that I'd gone to the classes when they were there for me. Fortunately, I had been taught at drama school, so I kicked the shit out of a few people and came off looking quite butch at the end. Yeah.
No, winged it.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. I like to think when you weren't at sword camp, you'd gone to rum camp instead.
I went to rum camp, yeah. It was great. I have another story about that. When I got back after the first film, I had these terrible stomach pains, and I went to my doctor and I said, I've got this terrible pain in my stomach. He said, have you had any lifestyle changes recently? And I went, no, not really. He said, forgive me if I'm wrong, but haven't you just been in the Caribbean for 3 months shooting a pirate film? I said, yeah, I was doing that. He said, did you drink a lot of rum punch? I said, oh yeah, we had loads of rum punch every day. He said, go home, don't drink rum punch for a week, and if you've still got a sore stomach, come back and see me. And of course I stopped, and it stopped hurting. Very bad for you, rum punch.
Yeah, alcohol and sugar.
Well, it's not the alcohol, it's the sugar. It's
Yeah.
the sugar that does it, yeah.
Yeah. Any more questions before we let Karen get back to the... Yep, we got one over here, and then we'll probably have to let you go.
How is it actually to make movies?
How is it?
Yes.
Well, it depends really. I mean, the ones where you go to Hawaii and the Caribbean and Australia are great. The ones that you shoot in some boring little town in England while it's pouring with rain in the winter is not so great. So my advice to you, if you wish to be in the movies, is do the ones that go to Caribbean and Hawaii. And don't do the ones that shoot... I don't know, what's the worst city in Belgium?
Whoa, what? Where?
Has anybody got an opinion? What's that? Charleroi. All right, well, don't do the films that shoot there. Okay?
Oh, I can't believe the reaction. Everyone just said the same one.
I know, it's terrible, isn't it? Is there anybody from that city here?
No.
Oh, they don't even go anywhere.
They're not allowed out.
They're not allowed out.
It's weird. I don't know if it's the same in Belgium, but in England we have a pride in our like shit cities.
Oh yeah, well, like Middlesbrough.
Yeah. I'm from Oldham, and we're all.
Oh, Oldham, yeah. Well, Oldham's all right.
It's not.
Isn't it?
It's not. But
I wasn't it trying to be nice? No, it's shit.
Yeah, it's awful. But I like how you guys all just went, yeah, it's this one place. Because everything's so beautiful, you can't imagine it. It's great.
Yeah.
Kevin, we are gonna, unless anyone's got a burning question they really want. No, we have.
We got one here.
Last one, and then we'll get you out. Yeah. And from the what a well-dressed man. Look at this.
Hello. Just a curious question. Because we had 3 months to the Caribbean, extreme heat and stuff from Britain to the Caribbean. How do you cope on some days? Did you have a day during the shooting at Caribbean that like, okay, I can't do this anymore, I'm enough, and how did you cope with it? Like, how did you get yourself out of a burnout? Like, I'm still stuck.
Well, the worst thing we had to do, there was a scene where we were running down a river, and then we had to run across a very sandy beach, run into the water, and climb up the side of the Black Pearl. And we did this about 4 times, and as you probably know, running through sand is exhausting anyway. Then running through waves is exhausting, but you're an actor, you took the job, you just got to keep doing it. There's no way you can get out of doing stuff. And it's a question of pride, really. You just keep doing it. I did think I was going to have a heart attack by about the 5th time, though. I mean, it's have a look at it next time you see it. Sorry, I was pointing at Star Trek. I mean, have a look at Pirates next time. I tell you what it is. It's when we escape from the cannibals. Just before Johnny comes round running with all the cannibals behind him, and then the cannibals chase the dog. It's that scene.
Yeah, I mean, the humidity must have been awful, like, to do that.
It was very, very humid there, and at times very, very hot.
What time of day was it as well?
Well, you shoot from the early morning till the evening, so the middle of the day becomes really quite unbearable. Funny enough, not so much in Hawaii, because for some reason it worked out we shot earlier in the year, so it was only spring, so that was really quite lovely. But they managed to do all of the location filming in the Caribbean at the height of summer.
The perfect time.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, just before the cyclones and things come in.
Yeah. Oh, we actually were evacuated because there was a hurricane.
Oh wow.
Yeah. At one point, me and Mackenzie Crook wanted to stay and batten down and feel what it was like to be in a hurricane, but they wouldn't let us.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons, I suppose. Yeah.
Imagine that midway through the shoot, just.
Yeah.
They didn't come back from that hurricane.
No, we lost them. We saw them shooting upwards, and they never came down again.
Luckily, someone films it and gets into the film. The best practical effect you've ever seen. Kevin, we are going to have to let you go, unfortunately. I could do this all day. But ladies and gentlemen, Kevin McNally, thank you very much. He'll be here for the rest of the day.